Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the opening press conference for the 26th meeting of the subsidiary body on science, technology, and technological advice of the Convention on Biological Diversity, being held at the United Nations office at Nairobi in Nairobi, Kenya. My name is David Ainsworth. I'm the head of communications for the Secretariat of the Convention, and this morning's opening press conference, we'll be joined by the acting executive secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity, David Cooper. So this meeting opens today. The meeting's going to be looking to forge agreement among delegates of the parties to the convention on issues pertaining to the science and technological assessments for implementing the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, or the Biodiversity Plan as we're calling it. That plan has got 4 overarching goals that'll take us to 2050 and 23 action targets to be achieved by 2030 as well. The meeting is going to be covering a number of issues that are important for implementation of this. We'll be looking at the monitoring framework for the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. That'll start those discussions this morning. We'll also look at scientific and technical cooperation for the meeting as well. A number of specifically science issues and multidisciplinary approaches are high on the agenda today, with items pertaining to synthetic biology, risk assessment for biosafety, the detection, identification of living modified organisms, including through a network of specialized laboratories. Also, we'll be looking at the linkages between biodiversity and human health over the next 6 days. There will be discussions relating to the conservation and sustainable use of marine and coastal biodiversity, including further work on ecologically or biologically significant marine areas, known as EBSAs, and island biodiversity as well. So that agenda will be unrolling today for the next 6 days. But let me turn now to David Cooper, the Acting Executive Secretary, who will give you the context for our discussions over the next 6 days. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David, and good morning or good day to everyone. This 26th meeting of SBSTTA, the Convention's subsidiary body on science, scientific technical advice, is a key meeting on the path to 2030, but also on the path to COP16, which will take place in Cali, Colombia, later this year. It'll be followed also by a meeting next week of the Convention subsidiary body on implementation. David's already outlined the issues that this meeting will address, and as he mentioned, I'll try and put these in some context. We all know that towards the end of 2022 at COP15 in Montreal, the global community came together and adopted this Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, the Biodiversity Plan. This is an incredibly ambitious framework to halt and reverse the loss of biodiversity by 2030. That's, as I say, an incredibly ambitious task. There are 4 main goals to that framework, to the Biodiversity Plan, to conserve and restore biodiversity, to prosper from nature, to share benefits fairly, and to invest and collaborate in nature. And then there are 23 action targets for 2030. Now, the focus, obviously, now has to be on how to implement this plan. One of the agenda items here focuses specifically on identifying what tools, what guidance, what recommendations are available, backed by science, to support parties in implementing this plan. And looking at what tools are available, looking at if there are any gaps that need to be filled, will be a major outcome of this week. Another important aspect here is, if we are to achieve these targets by 2030, if we are to stay on track to 2030, we need to be able to monitor progress. We need to be able to understand if we're on track. And that's why this agenda item, the first substantive agenda item on the monitoring framework, including a set of indicators, is so important. Over the past year and a half, there's been a lot of work undertaken through a technical advisory group that's drawn upon a broad range of scientific inputs, drawn upon the experience of parties, and drawn upon traditional knowledge as well, to put together a comprehensive framework of indicators. This meeting is due to endorse that framework and recommend that it's adopted by COP in Cali, Colombia, later this year. There are then a series of other more thematic issues that this meeting will address. I just mentioned two of them that are really at the cutting edge, I would argue, of the link between science and policy, both related to biotechnology. So one is a look at synthetic biology. So over the past year and a half, again, through another expert group, there has been a scan of the horizon. What is on the horizon in terms of developments in synthetic biology that may have impacts on biodiversity? There is incredible potential of synthetic biology to address a number of social and economic challenges that the world faces related to health, relating to food, but also there are risks involved, and how are those to be balanced? So this is a scan of the horizon of issues that will come up. The report of the advisory group is available before the meeting this week, and the meeting is due to consider that and make recommendations for the COP, for the Conference of the Parties. Another issue related to biotechnology is some draft guidelines that have been developed for risk assessment and risk management, assessment and management of the risks associated with the use of living modified organisms that contain engineered gene drives. These are methods that affect the pattern of inheritance of organisms, and they're being applied to control mosquito populations, for instance. And these are guidelines, again, to look at how the risks can be assessed and managed in this important area. Finally, two other thematic areas. One, looking at the links between biodiversity and health. The Biodiversity Plan, or the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, includes a number of actions that will contribute to improving human health, but also the health of wildlife and the health of the environment more generally. The plan includes recognition of the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. And what is on the table here this week is a global plan of action to look at these issues in more detail, to support the achievement of these co-benefits between the conservation of biodiversity and human health and the broader health of the environment. The importance of this issue, I think, can't be overstated. If we just have to look back a few years to the issue of the pandemic, we know that the more we protect nature, the more we invest in nature, the more we can reduce the risks of future pandemics, among other health-related issues. And of course, marine biodiversity is incredibly important. The oceans cover in 2/3 of the planet, so there's going to be a major focus on marine issues here. Also looking at cooperation in the future with the newly adopted agreement on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. So that's a whole range of issues. We look forward to robust discussions this week. And I think the range of issues that I've just outlined, the way these issues have been prepared over the past year and a half, demonstrates how important science is to the future of this convention, that it is indeed a science-based convention. Back to you, David.
Great, excellent. Thank you very, very much, David. Just a quick question. The discussions on the monitoring framework that will take place here at SBSTA have an impact and will be further carried over into the subsidiary body of implementations meeting that happens next week. Could you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. So what SBSTA has done, or what has been done under the auspices of SBSTA through the technical expert group on the monitoring framework and on indicators, is to look at the full range of indicators that are needed to address each of the targets and to fill any gaps, but also then to develop the methodologies for each of those indicators. And this is an important part of the overall plan to keep implementation of the biodiversity plan under review. That broader picture will be looked at by the subsidiary body on implementation next week, and it will also look at the plans for the mid-term review, the stock take, if you like, of progress that would take place at COP17 in 2026. So essentially, this body is looking at the science behind the indicators. The subsidiary body on implementation next week will be looking at the broader picture of how the biodiversity plan, the goals and targets of the plan are kept under review more broadly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very, very much. And then maybe one just last remark before we let you go. So you had commented that the discussion on the so-called EBSAs has a relationship or potential impact on some of the work that's going to move on this new treaty on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. Can you talk just a little bit more about that relationship?
Yes. So, of course, the CBD covers issues of biodiversity broadly. It covers areas within and beyond national jurisdiction, but in different ways. The new treaty, the Agreement on Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, focuses on how we can do a number of things in those areas that are beyond national jurisdiction specifically. That includes how we create protected areas, for instance, in areas beyond national jurisdiction. It looks at how we manage the benefits arising from genetic resources that are collected in areas beyond national jurisdiction, largely from the seabed. And it also looks at how we manage impact assessment and the responsibilities for activities beyond national jurisdiction. And all three of these are also important to the CBD. The work that has been done over many years under this convention on the ecologically and biologically significant marine areas is relevant. These are areas that need greater attention for the protection of biodiversity or for the management of biodiversity. That greater attention might be the response to that need might be through the establishment of a marine protected area, now under the new treaty, in which case the identification of the areas or the description of the areas that are relevant will be very useful, I think, as that new treaty gets going once it enters into force after a number of countries have ratified it. But I would say also the other aspects, including impact assessment. There's been guidelines on environmental impact assessment and on strategic impact assessment as have been developed under the conventions to make sure that biodiversity-related issues are taken into account in those assessments. And a number of years ago, the convention approved specific guidelines for deep sea areas and areas of the open ocean. And again, these tools will be very relevant to the implementation of the new agreement on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction.
Excellent, thank you. These important synergies and linkages between these other processes is something that has been underlined in recent years. So we've talked about the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, but there's also work taking place under a number of other multilateral environment organizations that are intimately linked with the work of the framework. We're going to let David go because in about 15 minutes he's got to be there for the opening of the plenary. Just reminding anyone who's watching on UN Web TV that the opening plenary of SBSTA 26 will be broadcast here. The opening of the meeting, some organizations organizational matters, including some elections, and then they'll move to the agenda items on the monitoring framework and scientific and technical needs. So thank you for joining us, David. Thank you for taking your time to be with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Good morning.